Sometime in 2021, I left a job that I really, really loved. I felt like it was just time for me to move on and go to a place where I would feel more valued. At the time when I left that old job, I started looking for a new one, and within a week or so, I had about 3 job offers. It was right before the pandemic, so it really was the employee's job market. All the offers I received at the time were very competitive. Of the 3 offers that I received, Company A is still up and running. They have a robust product development pipeline with programs approved in the United States and outside of the United States. Company B is still up and running. Their phase 2 clinical study for their lead program was very successful, and they're moving on to their pivotal trial, which is phase 3. That's the last step prior to filing for global approvals. And Company C, which I ultimately decided not to name, announced on September 18th of 2023 approval from their board to completely liquidate and dissolve the company. Of the 3 companies, I was really ruminating on who to choose, and I foolishly chose Company C. And it wasn't because of their product development pipeline, but because I really liked their senior vice president of regulatory affairs, quality assurance, and clinical operations. I felt like we really connected during the interview stage. And now that I think back to it, a senior vice president running 3 crucial departments should have been my first red flag, on top of the fact that one of their studies were on clinical hold. But I was kind of blinded by the fact that I connected so well with the senior vice president that I thought, who cares? I'm going to be able to learn a lot from this person. Let me just take the opportunity. A big part of advancing in biotech and biopharma is who you work for. Who do you know? Who's teaching you? Regulatory affairs really is a profession of practice, and you can only advance if the person you're reporting to allows it. They create the exposure, and this SVP promised me that if I joined Company C, my career would change forever. They were right. Just not in the way that either of us thought. There are a lot of biotech and biopharma companies filing for liquidation and dissolution in 2023, and I honestly think there's going to be more to come in 2024 and 2025. Rubius Therapeutics went public in 2018 at a $2 billion valuation. They had 0 clinical data, but you know what they did to keep shareholders excited and interested? Pump all these press releases onto the street, like announcing they dosed their first patient. That's great, but what value does that provide in understanding the safety and efficacy of your product? It doesn't. And you know, we all know in the biotech and biopharmaceutical industry, in any industry really, there's a need to put these press releases out there for opportunities to raise money and garner potential partnerships. But at a $2 billion valuation, your focus should be data and not pushing out all these inconsequential press releases. According to their website, Rubius Therapeutics ceased all operations on the 13th of December in 2022. Aptonix went public in June of 2018. They raised $102 million in their IPO. According to their 8K filed on June 30th, 2023, the company has ceased all operations and their board has approved a liquidation and dissolution of the company. When you visit their website, you get the same message. These are just a few examples of companies IPOing with the hopes of their financial woes disappearing, but not being able to present enough data to substantiate their existence. You can have all the investment dollars in the world. There is no amount of money that makes data appear out of thin air. And then we had COVID.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades.
But unfortunately, more than 1 in 4 say they are not planning to get the vaccine ever.
COVID-19. Well, much of the attention is being brought to coronavirus prevention and
You'll know it. You'll know it if you got it.
They probably will get a little bit worse before they get better.
Excuse me, but it feels like hell.
people can
like
have
hell.
COVID-19.
COVID-19 will survive.
And COVID really gave a lot of these biotech and biopharmaceutical companies hope that they should have never been granted. During the global pandemic, there was a massive pump of dollars into the industry. You had companies that had never dosed a patient in the lifetime of the company IPOing. In 2021 alone, there were over 100 biotech IPOs. Companies with limited data and unclear visions had these inflated valuations based on the exaggerated extrapolation that their program or product might work. And I cannot stress the might enough. We had companies like Kyyah Biosciences trying to pivot from the treatment of gut microbiome to COVID. And to make matters worse, Kyyah did this without trying to file all the necessary paperwork with the FDA. Kyyah failed to submit INDs for the conduct of clinical investigations with an investigational new drug. Then, when the FDA issued a warning letter, the company tried to come back and say the studies they were conducting were to enhance their understanding of the distinct nutritional requirements that may exist in individuals with respiratory viral illnesses, such as COVID-19, and would support the positioning of KB109, which I'm just gonna call the asset, as a medical food rather than a drug. Since the study was a natural history study, I see where they were going, but the FDA came back and presented a published article supported by Kyyah and Kyah's press releases stating the objective of their clinical protocol was to compare the safety and efficacy of their asset in combination with self-supportive care under quarantine protocols set forth by the CDC. Do you know how embarrassing it is to have the FDA or any external party use your own press releases against you? Some leaders genuinely forget what they tell their shareholders, and that's how they get caught up. The direction that Kyyah Biosciences was going in was a direct misinterpretation of the regs. In my professional opinion, not fact. I honestly feel like they were just trying to get in on the COVID market share. And they were probably trying to find as many loopholes as possible to make that happen. Because I don't know how you conduct a clinical study looking at the safety and efficacy of a product and you think that you don't need to file an IND with the FDA. That's very crazy. In their April 8th, 2022 8K filing with the SEC, the company, Kyyah Biosciences, stated they could not continue operations and believed that the best alternative was an orderly wind down process. Essentially, they're closing up shop. It's no secret that clinical research is a risky financial investment, but the influx of money pumped into the industry during the pandemic, specifically in companies that just had no data. And even if they did have data, 5 patients isn't enough to determine statistical significance. More importantly, I don't think any biotech or biopharmaceutical company needs billions of dollars to gear up preclinical and phase 1 operations. I promise you, you don't. And you also don't need to IPO. Some people watching this video might be thinking, well, a lot of these companies proceed with IPOing because they may or may not be able to get any more investment dollars from venture capital firms. There's grants and other means that you can find to proceed with early phase preclinical work. You really don't need to IPO that early. And honestly, if you're struggling to get capital pre-IPO because VCs may or may not give you the money, maybe that's a sign that there's nothing there. Maybe they can't get the VC dollars because there's no justification for that product, that platform, or that program. It's a tough one because there were millions of people dying. So all these companies were trying to find a solution, a cure, a treatment, an intervention for COVID. For a majority of people who work in biotech and biopharma, the effort was genuine. On the other hand, you had some people, some companies, some leaders that were less genuine. I think a lot of companies during COVID, specifically leaders within those companies, saw the influx of money and forgot why we were there in the first place. Somewhere along the way, the science was forgotten, the purpose, the patients, it was all blinded by money. And we've seen this all before. And it creates a serious problem when you pump all this money into companies that either don't know what they're doing or that don't have an asset that has demonstrated safety in humans or an effect. You get people who love the pharma salaries and the lifestyle that that salary brings. So instead of making informed public health decisions, they make a lot of ill-informed decisions to maintain that salary and that lifestyle. Look at Painkiller, The Dropout, Pharma Bros. We've seen this all before. Dope Sick, the Sackler family. I just think a lot of companies that should have died in 2019 and 2020 were able to stay alive by explaining away the reality of the company's situation to shareholders who may not fully understand the world of drug development. All of this brings me back to Company C and why I chose to leave. Let me first just say, the grass is rarely greener on the other side, especially when you work in biotech and biopharma and you get past the mid-senior management level and you're working more with executives. So once you reach that like director level and you're working with senior vice presidents, presidents, and the CEO. In addition to interviewing with the senior vice president of clinical operations, regulatory affairs, and quality assurance, I also interviewed with the director of medical affairs, the director of business development at the time, the senior vice president of technical operations, and the director of quality assurance. They all seemed very normal to me. At the same time, I think I was so in awe of the SVP that I didn't even really care to assess any red flags I may have been picking up on at the time. I joined the company May 2021 and I left August 2021. I was there for a little over 90 days. When I was interviewing for the job, I was living in Atlanta at the time with my cousins. My plan was to stay there, and then once I got another opportunity, such as working for Company C, I would come back to LA. So when I got the job, I came back to LA, and as soon as I landed, I was back in my car on the road, driving to Company C's headquarters in San Diego. Even though I was hired as a remote employee, it's really not uncommon when you're hired as a remote employee in biotech or biopharma for the company to ask you to come to the office for the first week. I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't think that was a red flag at the time. On my first day of work, I go into the office, I meet my colleagues, I get my laptop. Everyone was fine. But for some reason, my gut was just very unsettled being in that office. Someone else who was joining my department had started on the same day as me. And throughout the week that we were both there, we had built really great rapport. And I remember at some point during the week, we went out to get lunch, just me and this other colleague. And I remember telling them, something feels so off about this place. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I just feel so weird about working here. I remember where we went to lunch. I remember what I was wearing. I remember what they were wearing. I recall this conversation so vividly. And looking back on it now, I kind of wish I had quit that day.